What's happening?
Welcome to PhD2go, the podcast for PhD students in the natural sciences in Göttingen.
So hello, welcome to our listeners as we embark on this podcast journey to help spread the word about all things related to a PhD at the Georg August Universität Göttingen in Göttingen, Germany. My name is Elisa de Grave, and I'm a third-year PhD student within the International Research Training Group 1816, or IRTG 1816 for short. I have two of my colleagues, Surabhi Swankar and Julius Pronto, here with me from the same IRTG cohort to discuss some tidbits of information regarding moving to and living in Göttingen as a PhD student. But first, let's give you a little background about who we are and where we are from. Let's start with me. So, I'm from the United States, specifically Alabama. I'll spare you all the southern accent. And came to Göttingen in 2017 to partake in the cardiovascular science master's program. That's what kind of segued my way into discovering the IRTG 1816 and really motivated me to apply for a PhD position within it.
Thank you for inviting us. It's really lovely to be here. I'm from India, and after I did my master's in medical biotechnology, my thesis was based on cardiovascular regeneration, and that really piqued my further interest towards a PhD in the same field. I got to know about IRTG 1816 from a conference that I presented at in Göttingen, and it basically seemed to tick all the right boxes. So here I am.
Yeah, also thanks for having me. So I'm Julius. I come from the Philippines where I did my bachelor studies in biology. And then a year later I moved to Busan, South Korea, where I did my combined master's and PhD in cardiac metabolism, which unfortunately didn't work out. So now I'm here in Göttingen working on atrial fibrillation. I actually didn't find about the IRTG myself because it was a friend of mine who gave me the job posting through ResearchGate. So I was lucky to get an interview, and now look at us, almost at the end of our PhDs.
Woo! All right, so let's dive right in. What was it like moving to Germany, and specifically Göttingen for both of you?
Well, I had always known before even coming here that I wanted to pick Germany to do a PhD. The quality of science here is just exceptional. About actually coming here, I did not know much about Göttingen except what you read on its Wikipedia page. But actually moving here was a pleasant surprise. I really feel the whole university town vibe makes it very easy to settle in and find your ground. You know that about 20% of population in Göttingen are students. It's not as overwhelming as a typical big city, and at the same time it's very charming and welcoming. So I felt like I was on a very big college campus. And it really helped me a lot because it's very easy to find new international students who are in the same boat as you. Moreover, the supportive framework of the IRTG really helps you in the beginning phases.
Yeah, it was a bit quite different for me because I was applying all over the world, specifically looking for labs doing cardiac electrophysiology, which I was not lucky to do in my lab in South Korea. That's why I decided to move on. Before coming here, I had not even heard of Göttingen. I didn't even know how to pronounce it. But I was really excited to move as I had never been outside Asia before. So the almost 40-hour journey flew by for me. But as soon as I arrived, I was really disappointed with the public transportation here. Because in South Korea, it was very, really efficient and it's very easy to navigate. But here, it was very confusing. And sometimes the DB or the Deutsche Bahn employees couldn't really answer me when I asked for help. And for example, when I arrived here, I almost missed my train by a minute. So that was really annoying.
Oh my goodness. I mean, we have definitely all had an experience like that when traveling with Deutsche Bahn.
Yeah, but I think it's integral to the German experience, you know. But on the brighter side of things, Göttingen is almost, almost at the center of Germany. And it's in the next biggest state in Germany, so I think it's very good for traveling. We are really well connected with the trains. For example, if you want to go to Frankfurt, which was the first point of entry for me coming to Germany, that was just two hours away by train. If you want to go to Berlin or Hamburg, that's almost 2 to 3 hours away. And if you want to go to the mountains in Munich, for example, that's 5 hours if Deutsche Bahn cooperates.
Yeah, well, I agree. I too have a love-hate relationship with Deutsche Bahn. As Julius has already mentioned the important things, I would just like to add that the university also gives us a very generous semester ticket, which actually covers all of the Lower Saxony. So please go out and use those free train rides.
I also recommend going out and taking advantage of that semester ticket during your free time. Well, if you actually manage to have some free time. Speaking of semester ticket, we also have a culture ticket included, right? Have you both ever done something with that?
Yeah, just to add to that, so besides the art and culture part of the ticket, we also pay for the bus, for public transportation. So when we want to go to the university or somewhere else within Göttingen, so that's actually for free. And with regards to the culture part of the ticket, I know that sometimes you can go to concerts for free or for a discount. For example, I went to a piano recital for free. They have it sometimes every week, so that's a good advantage to the ticket. And I was once at the concert by the Göttingen Symphony Orchestra, and I paid less as a student as well. My friend had to pay €1 on the day of the concert, so I think that's a really good benefit for the ticket.
Totally reasonable.
Yeah. And I think there are also social dancing courses, and I think with the semester ticket, you can get some benefit from this as well.
It's definitely on my bucket list to go to the theater before finishing. But back to a more serious topic, though. How was the visa process for both of you before coming to Göttingen? Because I actually know that the process is different for both master students and PhD students, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, the visa process went quite smoothly. I got my visa in just 3 days, which is really surprising considering the number of applicants that apply from India usually. So I guess if you have all the requisite documents, it should not be a trouble. But what you need first and foremost are your transcripts translated in either English or German, a health insurance, and a document stating your means of subsistence. This is generally from your PhD program. For example, for me it was a letter that the project is funded by the IRTG. The rest are all conventional visa documents that might be country specific in cases.
Yeah, same. For me, the visa application was also not too stressful because with the employment visa, which we get as PhD students, most of the requirements were typical and some of them were provided by the employer. I did not even have to show a blocked account, for example. I think that's a main difference between a master student and a PhD student. And yeah, as PhD students, we get a category D visa for employment, and that must be issued before you go to Germany. Normally, it's valid for 90 days, and beyond that, you need to apply for a settlement visa in Germany.
Yeah, and we were actually lucky enough to go through that process before the corona pandemic. And although things have calmed down quite a bit with the restrictions, appointments can still be pretty difficult to get, so it's really, really important to get that done as soon as possible. As it was mentioned already, someone coming over to Göttingen to do their PhD needs a health insurance document for the visa process. Does the employer supply that document, or how does someone go about getting health insurance, actually?
Oh, it's actually very easy. So you just send a copy of your contract, or a pre-contract actually, that we get once we're still outside Germany. And we just send that to the health insurance provider. And then they can send us a document online stating that we will be insured once we arrive in Germany. So that was actually very, very easy to get.
So, that sounds simple enough. I can imagine that actually going through this bureaucratic paperwork may be difficult if you don't know German. What about the language requirements for studying in Germany? Did you have to show proof that you knew German?
Well, the knowledge of German language is not required for starting a PhD in Göttingen. Actually, it's not a requirement, at least in the natural sciences, but it might differ in other courses. And international students can actually take up language opportunities throughout their enrollment at the university. And students coming from non-English speaking countries are required to show a proof of English proficiency. However, it can be an English language certification exam or a proof that your higher education has been in English. So I think that should suffice.
Definitely, that's really good to know. I actually am going to share a funny story with you guys today about actually knowing German and using it in my everyday life. In the very beginning of my time in Germany, I was taking an intensive German course because I literally knew nothing and I wanted to be able to get around easier. So somehow I mixed up the meaning of Entschuldigung, which means excuse me in German, and Schmetterling, which means butterfly. So one day I got onto the tram in Cologne, Germany at a very busy time of the day and was actually trying to navigate my way through the people to a seat. So as a polite gesture, because I'm from Alabama, we are very courteous. I was trying to move around the people and I just start telling them all, "Oh, Schmetterling, Schmetterling." And they all just stared at me with big eyes. I was so confused and I was like, oh my goodness, am I saying something wrong to these people? And actually I spoke with a friend later on that day who knew better German at the time, and she told me actually that I was yelling or kindly saying to them butterfly, and they literally thought that I had lost my mind at that point. So embarrassing stories for everyone, I'm sure.
Definitely a good motivation to learn German.
Yeah. Yeah, so the adjustment to the language was only one small part of acclimating to Germany. Another part of acclimating is being able to actually find a place to stay and sleep. Were you both able to find housing easily in Göttingen?
Due to the large number of students in Göttingen, the housing situation, as in all university cities, I suppose, it's not always easy. So initially I applied for housing through the accommodation service of the university, but it was so crowded that I never heard from them actually. So I used PhD2go instead, where I found my first flat share, and all of my succeeding searches were also done by PhD2go. But I think you can also find flats on eBay, or the same posts are also posted as an advertisement on student groups on Facebook, for example. I've experienced both online and in-person flat casting, and it can get exhausting to practically have to sell yourself to be chosen to be a flatmate or a tenant, but fortunately it's always worked out for me in the end.
Yeah, searching for and actually landing a flat is certainly a job in and of itself.
I totally agree with you, Elisa. I never actually tried my hands at the university accommodation because I always used to hear that it is a bit difficult to get through. Although now I do regret that because I anyway wasted a lot of time moving between places. So maybe a good idea is to apply well in advance or sign up for the waiting list, which I now hear that you can actually do it before getting a confirmation of admission. So that's really nice. In the beginning, I stayed at the university guest house, which was arranged for me by the IRTG. The apartment was super nice and cozy with an amazing view of the hills, and it was super affordable. It's a good start, and you can move out subsequently if you find something else. And I actually know several students who have stayed at the guest housing for more than a year, so I guess it works out.
Mm-hmm. So, incorporating rent, food, and all the miscellaneous items that we need to take into consideration each month, what is an average monthly budget like for a PhD student in Göttingen? And that's also taking into consideration that we have to pay a semester fee that is about 400 euros as well.
I don't think I'm the best person to talk about budgeting really. But just to give you an idea, I spend around 300 euros for my flat. It's all inclusive, and about 60 euros for the phone provider and other media subscriptions. And I spend around 200 for food. Can change, depends on how much I eat outside, which is frequent nowadays. I find that the financial support that we get as a PhD student actually is enough for living, enjoying hobbies, and actually saving. So I think it's quite good.
Even with a medium treat yourself attitude, I have been able to save, so it is indeed enough. I also spend about 350 on rent, all inclusive, about 300 on groceries or food, but you should be wary of the little costs that can pile up. It can be phone, internet, the television tax, the usual lunch or coffee at your workplace, and so on.
But please tell me I'm not the only one that budgets money to do fun things in Göttingen as well. I love going to watch the BG Göttingen basketball team. What do you guys do for fun in Göttingen?
To be honest, whenever I am just in Göttingen, I tend to just stay at home or at some friend's place to hang out. But here I was able to do some bouldering because most of my flatmates do it. I've also tried salsa dancing.
Ooh.
Yes. But for example, if you like to go running here, I was able to become a little bit more active here in Göttingen. So if you like to go running or go for walks, the city wall or the forest can also be good options. I've met most of my Filipino friends here, so I've met a Filipino community here via common friends, but I think for specific interests, you can go to Facebook pages for that.
Mm-hmm.
I really just like exploring the little corners of Göttingen and taking pictures of the city. I like to schmetterling around Göttingen, I'd like to say. I have actually found many hidden gems in doing so. I like to go uphill around the old botanical garden or the multiple rapeseed fields that bloom in season. I also like to hang out around the lakes. It's super nice. I'm still finding new things to do in and around Göttingen. It's a small town, but it has its own surprises. There's a lot of cozy cafes, beer gardens. There's an ice wiese, which is really nice, and the university sports center is pretty good.
Mm-hmm. I'm actually really glad that you mentioned the lakes around Göttingen because I'm fortunate enough to live near one of them. It's called the Kisi, and it's super easy to just go there and run or walk or have a picnic with your friends, or really it's just a nice place to be surrounded by nature and just hang out.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that we have talked about a lot of helpful information, definitely information that we would have wanted to know before arriving in Göttingen. But to leave our listeners on a really, really helpful note, I'm going to ask you both. Are you ready? What would you recommend to your past selves before starting the PhD?
That's a tough one.
Tricky, right?
Yeah, but I think it has to be clear to oneself why they are doing a PhD, because it depends a lot on self-motivation and persistence, and if it would be hard to achieve those without having a clear goal in mind. So I just wish I had thought about it more instead of thinking that doing a PhD was just like a normal next step for after a master's degree.
That's good advice. I completely agree. I would also advise the old me to be open to change. A PhD is a long journey, and even though you might have come with a fixed set of directions in mind, things can change along the way. It might be related to your project, your supervisor, or your life in Göttingen in general. So being stuck to the idea of what should be does not really help you. So maybe try to be more flexible with that.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah, really good points. If only we could actually travel back in time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would also definitely recommend not losing your hobbies as you work through your PhD. Your project obviously takes priority, and in the beginning it will take time and patience to learn new techniques or work through the challenges in the data. But it's really important to make sure that you give your brain a break by doing something that you enjoy every so often. But with that, guys, I just want to say that's a wrap for our first podcast. Thank you, Sarabi and Julius, for giving us the scoop on all things related to what you need to know when moving to Göttingen to start the PhD.
Thank
Hope
you for
guys
having us.
have a great day. Thank you.